Welcome to the Railway Series Book Club, the podcast where we dissect the Railway Series. I'm Jamie.
I'm Marina.
I'm Liv.
And we hope you enjoy the show. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Railway Series Book Club. Hee hee funny.
Honestly, that's better.
I told you it was funny.
That's better than any opening I could come up with.
Yes.
It's better than any of the openings you have come up with.
Shut up.
Well, to be fair, your openings are automatically funnier than mine because I don't have any.
All right, welcome to the Railway Series Book Club, the podcast where we talk about the books about those funny trains. My name is Jamie. I'm the hostess with the mostest. Pronoun she, her.
I'm Marina, your local TV series bitch. Pronoun she, her.
I'm Liv. I'm British. She, her. Tally ho.
Join our Discord server.
Do it. Join the Discord server. A lot of people.
Join the Discord server.
A lot of people join the Discord server after fucking Henry the Elephant, which came out the day we're recording this.
Yeah.
Yes. Speaking of which, it should be safe to actually talk about now, but I hope you are enjoying our experimental weekly-ish schedule.
Yes.
That we're doing now, because this podcast was going too slow before.
Now
because
will be...
we timed it out, and if the original schedule kept on, we would have been doing the show for 7 years.
Now we'll be doing it for 3.5.
Well, you know, that's better.
It gives us less of a chance of one of us dying halfway through.
And then afterwards, I can make you do the TV series. Whoa! Fucking season 9 podcast. We're watching through every episode. It'll be fucking great.
So the way it works, the way we're trying it out for now, like, you know, if this somehow fucks up catastrophically, we'll go back to the old version and we'll, be back on our 7-year mission to finish the Railway Series.
We're very slow
readers. Assuming this actually works out, basically, there'll be like a 2-week break between books, but whenever we start a new book, we will be releasing episodes weekly. So 2 weeks ago, you had Henry and the Elephant. 1 week ago, you had Trouble in the Shed. This week, or right now, you're listening to Trouble in the Shed, and next week you will be listening to Percy Runs Away, and then after that, there will be like a week-long break, just to, give us some buffer room.
Yeah.
It's important. And then after that, we will be going into the next book.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I hope you guys enjoy this new uploading format, or, maybe you'll just not have noticed a difference, in which case, damn you.
If you guys like or dislike the new upload format, make sure to join our Discord and tell us all about it.
Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Complain to us in the Discord that we are uploading too frequently.
Smash that subscribe button. Check out the Railway Series Book Club OnlyFans.
Now you've made that joke like 3 times already.
That's the point. We gotta keep plugging it.
Anyway,
think of the money.
Today, we are going to be talking about Trouble in the Shed.
There's trouble in that shed.
Yeah.
In the words of the Fat Controller, you commie sons of bitches.
See, it's kind of, it's a very strange situation because, Gordon appears to have started some kind of, he says he started a tender engine society.
Yeah.
Where apparently what they're doing is they are enriching people's lives through the medium of not pulling trains. Do we want to just start reading?
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. The Fat Controller sat in his office and listened. The Fat Controller frowned and said, "What a nuisance passengers are. How can I work with all this noise?" The station master knocked and came in, looking worried. "There's trouble in the shed, sir. Henry is sulking, there is no train, and the passengers are saying this is a bad railway." "Indeed," said the Fat Controller, "we can't allow that. Will you quiet the passengers, please? I will go and speak to Henry." I love in the TV series version of this, like, the initial, like, kind of, like, zoom-in shot of, like, a bunch of people just surrounding the door to his office.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, fucking... Sir Topham Hatt calls the passengers a nuisance. Like, what a fucking asshole.
I mean,
My man Charles Topham Hatt would never.
I mean, to be fair, it's kind of very consistently shown in the books that the passengers are a necessary evil.
Yeah, you know... Yeah, my man Charles Hatt would never do anything like this. He's a Chad. Best controller, don't at me.
He's the head of the railway.
I was gonna say this is Sir Richard, but I think that's wrong.
So Richard is the
Richard is
current Fat Controller.
Well, I don't think Richard is actually the canon Fat Controller in anything except, like, you know, stuff that takes place after the Railway series, because Richard is the son of Stephen Hatt, who is Fat Controller by the end of the Railway series.
See, this is the thing. Stephen, I think the last time we heard of Stephen is 2006, which is when Reading Between the Lines came out. And
yeah, so I guess it'd be reasonable to think that maybe, like, by 2011 it's Richard, but, like,
I think Stephen... I want to say Stephen's first book is Branchline Engines. And he was...
Stephen's first book is in Christopher's stuff.
Okay. I was completely wrong then. So I think Stephen's first book is actually James and the Diesel Engines.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry he got stuck with that one.
So, like, based on that, he's probably been in charge for about 30 years, maybe 40, if he's still around.
Yeah.
It's okay, he's
also,
immortal.
Something interesting I noticed while, like, reading through this story is that, they never actually call this a strike in the book, even though it is clearly inspired by the BR strikes, and it's supposed to be one. Like, I'm pretty sure the TV series at the end of Tenders and Turntables, they say they decided to go on strike in order to, like, clarify what they're doing. But in the Railway series, they don't actually say the word strike, which is interesting. And, like, the big engines are a pretty shitty union anyway, considering their strike is, you know, more out of, like, you know, petty revenge as opposed to actually attaining proper working environments. But, you know, we'll talk more about that as we go along, and we also talked about that a good bit last time.
Yeah.
So can I just...
I do want to say quickly, something that's kind of, like, sticking out to me here is this regional map that's on the wall of this illustration, is this something that's... Is this like a definitive part of the later Sodor that we can point at, or is this just something that should not really be taken as canon?
I have no fucking idea. Like, I'm looking at it. I can't tell what it's supposed to be representing, so I think it might just be, like, an early take on the mainline map.
It looks... Okay, it looks... This is definitely not it, but, like, because the complete collection kind of has, like, the map on the front, it... In a weird way, it kind of resembles... No, I was gonna say near where Kirk Ronan is, but that's not right. It doesn't line up with anywhere on the map, it seems like.
Yeah.
So I guess this is just a thing of he didn't have the map down yet, so Dolby just threw something in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, not an awful lot to say about this page other than what we've already said.
I think this is one of the only illustrations in the series so far to not have a single engine in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it actually looks pretty good, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, mostly because Dalby's not trying and failing to draw a train.
Yeah, I think, especially when Andrew was on and they were, like, pointing out, like, kind of... like what was probably like Dobby's like inspiration for different illustrations and stuff. Honestly, like, I think Dalby is a really good artist. He's just not the best at consistently drawing trains.
Which,
yeah, I feel like if Dalby was around as a Twitter artist today, his commissions would be like, you know, no mecha, no furry.
It's
God,
like, I feel like with Dalby, he's a really good illustrator. He just can't draw trains, and that's a problem considering his job was to draw trains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a good fit for the job.
I want a story where the engines actually form a union.
I'm gonna say I want a story where the engines get annoyed because Dalby can't draw them.
No, that would be fucking stories of Sodar. No one wants stories of Sodar.
I am honestly fucking amazed they didn't put that in their... didn't put the Dalby thing in their thing about the books. God, I hate that episode. Anyway,
why did you make it so outlandish?
Why does the Fat Controller have 3 telephones?
Because one is for his wife to call. One is for... The others are both business things, and he could just unhook whichever people he feels like ignoring, but still use the phone.
One of them's Edward.
Yeah! Yeah, he has a direct
Edward
line
just
to
has
God.
a phone line.
It's just kind of like Edward just, like, this is the thing, Edward is all-powerful, but he does get lonely sometimes, so he likes to have someone to talk to.
Aww. The Fat Controller gives Edward his first cell phone, but it's like one of those, like, baby's first cell phones from, like,
Yes!
the 2000s or 2010s.
Yeah.
It's got, like, you know, call home or call 911 on it, and it's shaped like a ladybug.
See, I'm just
That's
imagining, like, the
cute.
Fat Controller giving Edward, like, a flip phone, and Edward's just really happy.
Aww.
And he gives Thomas one, and it just makes the fucking, like, Thomas gets a cell phone, like, busted buffers video happen.
God.
He found Henry, Gordon, and James looking sulky. Come along, Henry, he said. It is time your train was ready. Henry's not going, said Gordon rudely. We won't shunt like common tank engines. We are important tender engines. You fetch our coaches and we will pull them. Tender engines don't shunt. And all 3 engines let off steam in a cheeky way. Oh, indeed, said the Fat Controller severely. We'll see about that. Engines on my railway do as they are told.
This illustration is weird. Like, I'm just looking at the scan of it on the wiki right now, and I'm not sure if it was just because it was scanned weirdly, but, like, why did... Like, you know, the engines look really small, and it doesn't help that the page is extremely zoomed out. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you won't be able to see it in the video because I have it zoomed in the way it's, cropped for the graphics, but, like...
Yeah, the engines look very small. It's like, the people are really big and the shed is really tall, but the engines are all tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this reminds me of fucking, like, Arsdale Railway shit.
This inspired Mike Rexenberg.
Yep.
I do like the faces in this illustration. I love Gordon's, like,
yeah,
anger.
They look pretty cheeky.
Yeah, just James, and especially Henry's fucking face here.
Yeah. I also, take notes here, Gordon once again does all of the talking for the other engines. So he is clearly the mastermind of this whole situation. And the other 2 are just, like, kind of following him along.
Which is really interesting.
Something that really bothers me about this, and honestly just the entire story in general, is just the way the Fat Controller, like, plays his angle throughout the entire situation. Like, you know, there are plenty of, like, actual good reasons he could, like, state to, like, rebuke Gordon and Henry and James in the situation. Like, oh, it's not fair to the passengers. Or, like, you know, okay, you know, or just something. Especially later in the story. But, like, the angle he goes with here is, no, this is my railway and I tell you what to do. Which is, like, not a good justification for any person in a role of authority.
It's kind of like a parent saying, because I said so.
Yeah, and it's bullshit when they do it too.
Not to be that bitch, and I'm not even saying that's what this is, but I do think its lines like this that kind of do fuel the incorrect perception that the series
is like super like, authoritarian.
yeah,
stuff.
that the engines kind of don't really have free will and are just kind of like under his rule, which is like, it's very clear, especially later on, that they were working to like counter that as much as possible, but yeah, stuff like this doesn't exactly help that, because like you said, there's way more they could have, there's tons of other things he could have said, even just like no work should be beneath you or anything.
No work is too important for a big engine, I feel like would have been a good thing to say here.
Yeah.
Like,
so
yeah.
like the interesting thing is that like he still gets them what they want.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that in later pages, but yeah.
Like the fact that he says engines on my railway do as they are told, but then he also goes out and remedies the problem.
Yeah. Like,
I think we'll talk about it a little bit like in the next few pages, but yeah, that is definitely a point in the favor of Sir Topham Hatt in this situation. Like, even if he is playing this from a stupid angle, he does at least, take good steps to try and counteract the problem.
yeah. Also, this is two small things, kind of not related to the overall topic, but I forgot to mention on the last page, I'm pretty sure they cut the line of him calling the passengers a nuisance in the TV series.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, they totally did.
Yeah, which is interesting. And also...
It's interesting, but also makes sense.
Yeah. I get why they didn't want him to go, like, bother, I fucking hate my customers.
Yeah.
Also,
the customer is always wrong on the Northwestern Railway.
Yeah. God. I feel like this definitely kind of shows, especially in the early Railway series, like, they still hadn't really figured out what they wanted to do with the Fat Controller yet. He kind of changes based on the story, it seems.
A little bit, yeah. I feel like he starts to get a bit more consistent, like, in these next couple books.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of nailed down by the time of Percy the Small Engine.
Yeah. Well, by then he's Charles and he's better.
This is true.
It's a very simple solution. He's been replaced.
Yeah.
Like Henry.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh no!
I fucking love the little tiny, like, Fat Controller they use for the shots where, like, near the engines, it's so small, the face is, like, drawn on. Fucking the model, like, people in the, like, just the model series in general, but especially the classic series, is, like, one of my favorite things, because so many of them look so fucking weird. I love it. He hurried away, climbed into his car, and drove to find Edward. The yard has never been the same since Thomas left, he thought sadly. Edward was shunting. Leave those trucks, please, Edward. I want you to push coaches for me in the yard. Thank you, sir. That will be a nice change. That's a good engine, said the Fat Controller kindly. Off you go, then. So Edward found coaches for the 3 engines, and that day the trains ran as usual.
It's Edward's station.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Edward Station.
This is...
What a funny little guy.
Yeah.
He looks a bit... The drawing of him looks a little bit diseased, but you know what?
His cab has adventurous proportions.
His cab has adventurous proportions, his boiler is fat, the wheels are super far apart.
His boiler has Trackmaster 2 proportions.
Yeah.
And his wheels have not Trackmaster 2 proportions, because they actually are correct.
And they're also fucking huge in comparison, so...
Also, so this is something that I must point out. This is the first appearance of Edward's little siding.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It just goes up right up to the fucking, ramp for the platform. That's a bit weird, but okay.
I want Edward to be able to drive up onto the platform.
I do prefer it later in the books and in the TV series where it's kind of like next to the building.
Yeah.
It's like I really like Edward having his own little siding.
It's cute.
It's cool. Also, I must, obligatorily call out Edward for being a scab, but, like, there'll be more important things to talk about regarding that in the next page.
Yeah,
Scab.
I will say in this situation, I do think Edward's been misblamed, but, like, we can get onto that in the next page.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like
Yeah.
Edward doesn't really know what's happening.
Yeah, he's just been here vibing at his station. He doesn't know what the big engines are getting up to.
And
It's
especially
like,
because
he doesn't see them. And, like, essentially all that happened was the Fat Controller came up and was like, hey, Edward, can you come help me out? We're having some trouble in the yard. And Edward's like, yeah, of course. He goes and helps, and then he just gets fucking berated for, like, a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not even like they're still protesting, because, like, this page says...
Because they still go out and do it.
Yeah, like, they go out and do their work, and, like, objectively, he gave them what they wanted?
Yeah, like, I do have, like, a bit of a thought on this, but I think that might need to wait until next page, maybe?
Yeah, I guess we could save this
This
yeah.
story is actually sparking a lot of weirdly interesting conversation.
Yeah, there's interesting things to talk about it.
Yeah, this...
Mostly just because of ambiguities and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of this story kind of suffers from the fact that, like, it's obviously impossible for any of us to, like, ask Audrey what happened, like, or what, like, his inspirations and, like, meanings and everything
I feel like it should be, like, really obvious what happens in some of these stories, just because, like, this is a children's book, but sometimes things are just, like, worded in such a confusing way that it's like, what's supposed to be taken away from this?
Yeah.
Like, even as a kid, I didn't get it.
And especially because children's books from, 60 years ago, this one, at least, can not age the best in terms of message, and that's not me saying that Audrey is a bad person or anything, but
it's just kind of an inevitability of the passage of time.
Yeah, and it's like certain certain ideas can be not challenged, but like certain popular beliefs for certain things can be rightfully, I guess, fall out of the public eye, because, like...
Yeah, like, so sometimes morals do not age well because they were not good to begin with.
Yeah, so this was around when people thought workers' unions were the result of, like, communist infiltration and stuff.
Yeah.
So, like...
If you want better conditions, then you have to fight for it, forms a union. Wait, no, not like that.
Exactly. And this isn't saying that, like, Audrey, like vehemently, like, believed in, like, any of this, but it is also worth noting that part of the whole thing...
We genuinely don't know.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the really difficult part about discussing this book, is we don't know what his feelings on this were.
And it's very easy... Like, it's easy now to be swayed by, like, just, like, stuff you hear about, like, kind of major issues, just, like, online and everything, but we have the benefit of being able to, like, really easily fact-check stuff, whereas like, back then...
People in the 50s, people in the 50s, their access to news was limited to the radio and the newspaper, and
those could be very easily biased depending on the reason.
Yeah.
And most of those typically didn't tend to be very favorable towards, unions or leftism or anything like that.
This is the complicated thing.
Yeah.
For people that were kind of living in that kind of time period, it's really hard to tell what was them actually believing something, and what was them essentially being parroting what they'd already heard because they don't actually know much about the topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, if your grandparent was a normal person before they got a Facebook account and then they started spewing a bunch of QAnon bullshit because, you know, they don't know any better than to not trust the shiny internet box. Which is weird considering, you know,
they're the first.
they were some of the people when the internet first came around to be like, hey, be careful of what you hear on the internet.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. You really think someone would do that? Go on the internet and tell lies?
We have strayed very far from the actual content of the book.
Somehow we even haven't that much.
I mean, we haven't.
Yeah.
Like, you know, none of this, I don't know if any of, like, what we've said strictly applies to, like, this situation in the book or this page, but, like, the book overall, yeah. I guess.
I guess as, like, just a general thing, we do not think that Audrey was a workers' union hating, like, I guess, like, to future-proof this racist, horrible human being. I don't think anybody actually thinks that. It's just, he was an old dude in the 50s, and we don't know what his politics were.
Yeah, he was an old dude in the 50s who didn't know everything, and sometimes that led to things that were not so good.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another day.
It's a story for about, a month from now, actually.
Oh god, it fucking is a month from now.
Wait,
Jesus
what's a month
Christ.
from now?
Henry Sneeze.
Oh, that one. I was thinking about, like, if we get to, like, the diesels or something, so I was gonna be like, that's not for another, like, 6 or 7 books. But then, oh god, I forgot Henry Sneeze.
We will get to that when we get to that, because Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Basically, I guess just as a very quick thing, don't just assume that you know everything about a topic. If there's a topic that you learn something about, that, like, you know, you hear about it on, like, the news or something, make sure you do your research. Learn everything you can learn about that kind of topic, because you don't know, maybe the news isn't giving you the full story.
Yeah. Anyway, back to talking trains.
Yes, this is a lighter thing before we move on to the page, but I love the fucking shot in the TV series of, like, Edward at Knapford, like, kind of, like, happily pushing the coaches, and you see, like, Henry looking pissed, and Gordon just has, like, his kind of, like, blank, like, sad face.
And
because it's like,
pretty good.
fuck, what do I do now?
I just love the fucking thing of, like, Gordon's eyes just slowly shifting from Edward to the fucking track.
Yeah! I forgot that, oh my god.
God, the big engines are so fucking stupid. It's wonderful.
They really are.
I like that they're just genuinely like, what the fuck do we do now? He gave us what we want, but we don't want it like this. We want it like a different one.
We won, but at what cost? But when the Fat Controller came next morning, Edward looked unhappy. Gordon came clanking past, hissing rudely. "Bless me," said the Fat Controller. "What a noise!" "They all hiss me, sir," answered Edward sadly. "They say tender engines don't shunt, and last night they said I had black wheels. I haven't, have I, sir?" "No, Edward, you have nice blue ones, and I'm proud of you. Tender engines do shunt, but all the same, you'd be happier in your own yard. We need a tank engine here."
So, like, my like, you know, thing about this page is, like, I mean, first of all, Edward also looks kind of fucked up here. But
yeah,
also,
my God, his face.
He's bigger than Gordon.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Anyway, my thing here, like, just thinking about this, I feel like to an extent, it might make sense if the big engines were angry at Edward. Like, just imagine, like, some kind of fantasy world where these 3 engines actually have principles.
God, what a wonderful world it would be.
Yeah.
Well, like, you know, assumedly their whole thing is tender engines do not shunt. We will not work until tender engines do not shunt. And the thing the Fat Controller does is get a different tender engine to shunt for them. Okay, well, they aren't shunting anymore, but, I mean, if they actually had principles and, like, believed in what they were saying, then this would be a huge deal breaker for them, because, hey, our whole thing is we don't want tender engines to shunt, and you're making a tender engine shunt. This is exactly what we're talking about.
That's the
but
thing.
They don't actually care about it.
It's like, Edward doesn't mind shunting. It's openly said in the books that he enjoys it.
Yeah, so, like...
That's why they see him as a scab, I guess.
This is just more proof that the big engines don't actually, like, you know, care about whatever message they're trying to send. They're just, you know, assholes.
Because, like, I feel like if their point was tender engines don't shun, and then they were like, oh yeah, but Edward doesn't mind, so Edward can do whatever the hell he wants.
Like, I guess Edward's technically undermining their message by being the way he is, and that's why they're angry at him. And, you know, also angry just because he foiled their oh-so-well-crafted plan to make the Fat Controller look like a silly little man.
I think, honestly, what's going on here, because you said it's like, oh, like, imagine if we lived in a fantasy world where, like, they had, like, morals and a point. It's like, here's the thing, that's the fantasy world that they're living in right now, because they think they do have a point. So they see Edward as not only undermining it, but making them look silly. So now they're trying to prove to him that, like, oh, we're above this shunting by making him feel like shit and treating him like garbage. Which I think is part of why when the Fat Controller shows up, he's just like, what the fuck is going on here?
See, this is the thing. This is the point where he starts punishing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I frankly, I'd never put this together as a kid until, like, y'all pointed this out to me, but, like, it totally makes sense that the Fat Controller would, like, you know, shut up the big engines in the shed, because, like, they were mean to Edward.
Yeah.
Like, this is just totally, like, rearranged the whole way I viewed the story, because, like,
Same.
you know, before I thought it was kind of like some fucking Nancy Pelosi bullshit where the Fat Controller gives them everything they want and then punishes them anyway. But, like, in actuality, they were, like, really mean to Edward.
Yeah.
And continued to be, even when Percy arrived.
Who's literally just here to help them and solve the problem they were having.
Yeah, they took Edward away from where he was. Like, he was just living his life.
Yeah. Yeah, so I feel like, thinking about it like this, I feel like the big engines being shut up in the shed is a lot more justified now.
Yeah.
In my eyes.
God, imagine being Edward in this, though. The Fat Controller comes up to you, you're just hanging out in your fucking little place, and he's like, hello, Edward, can you come and help me, please? He's like, oh yes, it'd be very nice to see everyone else again. And you get there, and you're just harassed for a day straight.
Yeah.
And you don't know why.
What the fuck? Yeah!
Like,
these three are fucking assholes!
There's not actually a scene where anyone explains to Edward what's going on until after they're already shut up.
Yeah,
so he didn't know what was happening.
He's just kind of left to figure it out on his own while, like, they're accusing him of, like, being a scab and everything for undermining their plans to not have to shunt by shunting for them. Like, poor Edward, all of this.
Yeah.
He just came to help and he's just being abused.
Yeah.
It's like, I do like the Fat Controller just being like, okay, you've been needlessly shitty to Edward, now I'm actually gonna fucking punish you for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, he tries to solve the problem, and then they're fucking being bullies, essentially, and he's like, nope, I'm not fucking having it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mentioned this last episode, but I think, I think he planned on, I think he always planned on getting a tank engine, even when he asked Edward, and, Edward was kind of meant to, be, a short-term solution, I guess, but, this just kind of hastened things, because things were just really clearly out of control. It's like, if he just got Percy, and then, sent Edward back, then, There's a very good chance the three of them would try this again, and not just like striking, but just being dicks to everyone until they got what they want.
Yeah, like if Sir Topham Hatt had brought Percy in instead of bringing in Edward as a stopgap measure, they probably would have been doing the same shit to Percy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would have been bullying Percy probably even more than they do in the actual series, and then when Percy leaves to go, like, you know, to Thomas's branch line, and then when Duck leaves later on, they probably just pull the same thing again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like, this is getting a bit ahead, but they outright do when Percy shows up. Henry's immediately trying to treat him and Edward like shit.
Yeah. God. The story makes a lot more sense now that we're viewing it through this lens.
God.
Hey, everybody, don't treat your friends like shit when they're literally just trying to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the moral of the story, I guess.
That's the moral of a lot of Thomas, honestly.
Yeah.
I guess one thing to bring up, because this is probably, like, the most obvious thing with this page, is the whole, like, black wheels thing, because in the TV series, specifically the US dub, I think, they change it to gray wheels, because I think in just, even if this, because, like, black, it's based on a term, black legs, which is, I'm assuming, a British term?
It's like a name for a scab.
Yeah. Like someone
It's
who
like an old-timey, like, British way of referring to somebody who works during a strike.
Yeah, so I think they probably just wanted to change it because, like,
people probably wouldn't know what that meant.
Yeah,
I didn't know what
maybe
it
would
meant.
have thought it was a racial thing.
Yeah, saying someone is black as an insult, it is very problematic. Yeah,
See, as a kid, I never thought about it like that. I was just thinking about the fact that I just thought, like, wait, why did that make Edward sad? Why were they using that as an insult? James has black wheels.
You know,
Yeah.
Here's the thing, that's what a kid would think. It's more just the parents watching with their kid that would probably be like, what the fuck? So, good call there. Like not, like, saying this was anything deliberate, because there's an
Edward, what happened? Why are you so sad? Why did they use you? They all hiss me and call me racial epithets, sir.
Also, it is funny that I'm pretty sure in the TV series you do see James in this shot when, like, he has black wheels.
Yeah.
And gray ones, too, in certain artworks. So...
Clearly, James is a
James
bastard.
just can't catch a fucking break. Yeah, clearly.
God. He went to an engine workshop, and they showed him all sorts of tank engines. There were big ones and little ones. Some looked happy, and some looked sad. And some looked at him anxiously, hoping he would choose them. At last he saw a smart little green engine with 4 wheels. That's the one, he thought. If I choose you, will you work hard? Oh, sir! Yes, sir! That's a good engine. I'll call you Percy. Yes, sir! Thank you, sir! Said Percy happily. This is cute.
Percy!
Yeah, that's a boy!
Percy!
I love him.
Yeah, the little boy! Little baby boy!
I really like this illustration of all the, like, just engines in the workshop. It helps it's Percy's first...
Yeah.
It helps it's Percy's first appearance, but, like, I always just liked how it looks. And...
Yeah.
I also, like, I know why they did it, obviously, but, like... I also do like how they pulled off the shot in the TV series with, like, all the engines covered in the tarp, and then, like, the one, like, pulls back to reveal Percy. It's like, it's cool.
Yeah, that's a really cool... That's, like, a really cool shot there. I really like this, too. Like, I kind of imagine that the, like, you know... these are all probably, like, you know, second or third-hand engines, given, like, you know, Percy's backstory. But, like, you know, I think, you know, I kind of imagine this as, like, a used car dealership.
Yeah.
Insert thinking it through joke here.
Governor, Anne Boleyn, and toast.
And berry.
Do you know what they're talking about, Rainy?
But yeah, Percy.
Yeah.
Percy.
He's fucking cool. Yeah.
Percy has been everybody's favorite at some point.
He's currently my favorite. Tied for the Duncan, but...
He's a fun little boy. And something to point out here is that Percy, along with other engines of the original, like, 6 or so, get a bit of flack for having a fucked up basis, but Percy's fucked up basis has nothing to do with Dalby making things weird, because Audrey wanted Percy to be a unique weirdo from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because Percy's meant to represent, like, the spirit of, like, quirky and unique industrial or O4Os that, like, you'd see from, like, fucking, like, Peckett or Kerr Stewart, or, like, any of the other, like, you know, people pumping out, like, you know, little O4Os for, like, you know, just industrial use.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, Percy being a weird kitbash of a bunch of parts, you know, that's valid. He's, you know, he's not meant to represent one single engine. He's meant to represent an idea, and I think he represents that idea wonderfully.
That being said, Audrey did fucking hate how Dalby drew him.
Yes, because...
I will say...
So I know what you're gonna say. I know what you're gonna say, so I'm gonna let you say it first, because I'm nice.
I appreciate that. I like Percy's design. Like, he has a very... Like, obviously it's partially because of how popular Thomas, and by extension Percy, as basically the second most prominent character from the franchise, and, like, how that's kind of influenced toy trains. But, like, Percy has, like, a very kind of toyish look to him. And, like, I know stuff like the perfectly round boiler and everything, like, aren't realistic for a saddle tank and all of that, but it's like, I like Percy's design. It's cute.
See, this is the
and
thing.
it
He
fits
doesn't even
him.
have...
Yeah, it's a cute design. It just spits in the face of reality.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have the perfectly round saddle tank in this illustration.
Yeah.
You can see it kind of tapers off.
kind of
Yeah, it
Bosch.
almost kind of looks like a normal saddle tank here. Of course, the proportions are just a little bit, like, fucked up with the perspective and everything, but, like, you know, it's kind of close to looking like an actual saddle tank.
Yeah. Looking at the next couple illustrations, it kind of goes between, like, various levels of, like, squash.
Yeah.
Like, even in what's supposed to be the same scene, because this is getting ahead, but looking at the two pictures of Percy at the signal box in Percy, like, runs away, from the first illustration to the second, his, like, boiler gets squatter. So, that's just Dalby being inconsistent, and the TV series probably chose to run with one where it was round, but... Yeah, it's completely unrealistic, but I do
This is the
like
thing.
it.
I don't think that was because of a character design thing. I think that was just because they needed more space in the model.
Probably.
Probably, yeah. You know, it was probably also easier to make it, like, you know, a round boiler instead of, like, shaping the saddle tank.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'll like, say my piece now. The reason TV series Percy spits in the face of reality is because Percy is a saddle tank locomotive. And a saddle tank is supposed to, like, sit on the boiler like a horse saddle. So, in order to remove it, you have to be able to, like, actually take it off. But the way Percy's is shaped in, like, some of these early illustrations and, like, in the TV series, it's basically just, like, entirely encircling the boiler, which would make it basically impossible to remove without, like, drastically disassembling the entire engine.
Yeah, no, I don't deny that. It's absolutely kind of defeats the purpose of what he's supposed to be.
Yeah. You know, I
will say, since we're kind of talking about Percy designs, I love the fact that in some of the articles Audrey wrote for, like, Railway Modeler and stuff, he talks about how, like, he designed his Percy model because he just really wanted another train to go with Thomas and also to make, like, Dalby stop being a fuck-up.
Aww.
And
then Dalby just didn't look at it
this is the thing.
anyway.
He literally said, but the artist at the time did not pay much attention, so my Percy, the correct one, looks different to the one in the books.
Okay, this is a weird thing, like, comparison, but that reminds me of specifically a thing, because after Brawl, like Smash Bros. Brawl, this is a weird example, but I swear it has a tie-in. And before, like, Sakurai made Kid Icarus Uprising, Nintendo initially went to... I forget the name of the company, but they made, like, the Star Wars, like, Rogue Squadron, like, space shooter type games.
Is this the Kid Icarus game?
Yes. Where, like, they wanted them to make a Kid Icarus game. And, like, they were making this thing where Pitt is, like, older and super edgy, and, like, his design, like, looks like fucking every, like, Western game protagonist ever. And Nintendo sent them the Brawl model, and we're like, hey, we kind of want you to base it off of this. like, here's the model for you to work with, here's some assets we have, just, do something with this. And they're like, okay, so that'll be the model in the tutorial section, and then it looks like this normally, and then Nintendo just fucking sacked them. And that kind of gives, like, it's not exactly the same, but that kind of gives me the same energy as, like, Audrey, like, sending Dalby, like, pictures of his personal
That is totally
model.
the Percy situation.
Yeah. Like, you send him pictures of the model. It's like, okay, like, do this. And he's like, okay. And then fucking Percy, the small engine, comes out, and fucking Audrey's just like, yeah, you're fired.
I will say, I do really like that article because he talks about how he built his Percy model partially for that, but partially because he also really wanted another engine to go with his Thomas because he wanted to play trains.
She's adorable.
Yeah, it's cute. Audrey, it's like we keep saying in these episodes, like, half of the Railway series lore is just excuses for Audrey to buy new model trains. And I think that's cute.
It's like
valid.
I in the thing it says his earliest set was essentially it was Thomas, Annie, Clarabelle, and then he made a Percy to go with them.
Awesome.
They were always meant to be friends.
Yeah.
I
Thomas and Percy, blue and green, best of friends that you ever see.
We're not really at the point where Audrey's modeling really starts affecting stuff. That comes kind of later, but when we get to Duck, we will have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
Especially because this is dating things again, but, like, we're still learning stuff about Audrey's models and, like, how they affected the books. Because, like, Luke showed off the Boko model, like, just this week, and it has, like, the exact same number as Boko has in the Railway series, and he was just like, yes, before you ask, this is why.
Yeah, like,
cool.
The reason Boko has that number is just because that's what the fucking unmodified model train looked like that he sent for a reference.
Yeah, which is,
like,
it's cool.
It's really interesting learning the reason behind these things.
Yeah.
And it's like, Duke the Lost Engine would be completely different without, like, the models. It probably wouldn't even exist. It'd probably be a completely different book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, we'll get to that later, but especially because of where that comes in the Railway series and where, like, we know Audrey was kind of running on ideas by that point. Like, there's a chance that, like, we wouldn't have even gotten, like, Duke as an actual character if he didn't have the, like, Mid-Sauter Railway layout, which is just, like, It's interesting.
Basically, train sets are cool. Everybody get a train set.
Exactly.
Yes. Only, like, last thing I have here. It's like, I do think it is a little weird that Percy doesn't have a name until the Fat Controller buys him. Like, I guess the previous owners he had didn't, like, want to get too attached, maybe, so they didn't give him one. But, you know.
This is the thing. It's pretty consistently shown that engines not owned by the Fat Controller or by, like, people on Sodor or other preservation railways usually don't have names.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's kind of like going very far ahead, but in Stepney the Bluebell engine, it talks about how a lot of the engines on the Bluebell didn't have names, so they gave them names.
Yeah. You know, I think it could also be that, like, you know, maybe this would be weird, but, like, maybe Percy had a name before the Fat Controller bought him, and then the Fat Controller was like, okay, I'll call you Percy now.
So it's basically the equivalent of,
would
like,
be weird.
adopting a kitten
Percy.
or a dog and then renaming them.
I'm just imagining Percy
Yeah.
just being too polite to correct him that he already has a name.
Aww.
Yeah. Maybe he's like, oh well, Percy's a fine name. I'm not too fussed. Well, then again, given how engines like, you know, Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel got renamed after they were purchased for new owners, maybe it's like a more normal thing for engines to be renamed when they get a new owner. Like, you know, clearly it's not bad luck like changing a boat's name in Tugs.
No,
though.
but don't you know
So-
they have their name as they experience their first firing or whatever the fuck. Okay, that joke aside,
Moving
I will
on.
say, when I was younger, before, like, knowing the lore books and stuff, I always did take this as, like, the workshop is basically the engine equivalent of, like, a pet, like, adoption center, and, like, Percy was the equivalent
Aww.
of, like, kind of, like, just, like, a, like, little, like, cat or a dog.
A little puppy.
Yeah, like born there.
Now I'm just
Getting a name
now,
for the first time.
because of the way you specifically phrased it as pet adoption center. My brain gave me the idea of like that one scene in Phineas and Ferb Across the Second Dimension, but it's just Percy. So it's like Percy is a secret agent, and he has like a little hat and shit.
God.
Also, this is the thing. So Percy is like, it's like sometimes like a shorthand for Percival. Is Percy's full name Percival?
I really like the Railway Mania version of Percy where his full name is Perseus. That's really cool.
That's a cool name.
See, I'm just imagining now, like, a scene where, like, Percy does something, and you just hear Gordon screaming Percival from somewhere across the yard.
Percy just
like invoking the full name when you're in trouble.
Yeah, no, it's like
Percival,
that. It's,
Percy,
Gordon does that when Percy annoys him. It's just, Percival, have you seen
Percival, the small engine, get in here.
Excuse me, Percival, have you seen my coaches? No, Gordon, no.
The thing about that is... Percy's good, and like I said, I know it's not, like, the official lore, and, like, I fully, like, this isn't, like, a, like, oh, like, the bases are wrong or anything. I just still like to think that this is, like, a little engine adoption center, and, like, Percy was just built here because it's cute. And that's been my headcanon since I read this story the first time when I was, like, 5, so I'm sticking to it.
I mean, like... They definitely portray Percy as if he's very fresh out of the workshop.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because of like the way the information about him is worded in the lore books, I feel like Percy's supposed to be like, you know, he's supposed to have like worked, you know, at multiple different places and basically just came to the workshop second or third hand. So like, you know, I feel like Percy has had, like, a fucking, like, you know, a decade's worth of, like, you know, travels working on different industrial sites in the UK. Like, just never talks about.
And he hasn't matured at all.
And he hasn't matured at all, because he is baby.
Exactly. Once baby, always baby. That's the energy I just strive for.
Do we have anything else for this page?
Percy, baby boy.
I like the big... It's not what it is, but like the second the engine in the middle, like the blue one, it always just looked like a really big Thomas to me, and I found that funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of has that vibe. You know, I love seeing Jeffrey the yes quite engine, in the background.
Yeah.
See, now I just
Alfred's
have, like,
on the end.
Now I'm just thinking
Sorry,
about like
Andrew.
Percy's Seaside Trip because Percy's Seaside Trip is very good.
It's a good song.
Percy's good. Everybody stand Percy.
Percy's great.
Yes, Sam Percy. Funny little engine.
There's a reason that he's one of the most popular.
Yeah.
It's because he's baby.
I'd argue Percy's probably, like, by far, like, the second most well-known character in the series.
This is the thing, though. Isn't James known to sell better?
Maybe. I think that might just be because he's the only red one out of, like, the...
Honestly, that's fair.
The general team of... Yeah.
It's like parents are just like, oh, I haven't bought a red one before.
Yeah, and then James will be the only red one on the shelf. So.
Yeah, he's the red one. He's, like... He's a tender engine, I guess, so he sticks out a bit more against Thomas.
And this is the thing. For as poorly as they characterize him in a lot of the CGI series... He's still kind of an easily memorable character.
Yeah,
he's always been my favorite. So,
I'd say really second to Thomas. He's probably the most memorable in the show, and this like is as someone whose favorite character is Percy.
This is the thing. There is a reason that the original marketing trio was always Thomas, Percy, and James.
Yeah.
See, I think there's a compelling argument to be made that it should have been that the marketing trio should have been Thomas, James, and Henry, just because, like, you know, Henry's also green, but he's also a much bigger size than Thomas and James, so that means that, like, the three main engines TM are all, like, distinct colors and sizes. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Percy fits better as, like, a marketable character, though.
See, as a kid, I always wanted the main trio to be Thomas, Percy, and Toby, because they had their little shed, and I liked that.
Unfortunately, I don't think Toby sells that well, considering the great repository of Trackmaster 2 Tobys of 2015.
Okay, genuine thing. Do you think that they have produced a single Toby since that happened?
Probably not. Here's the thing, after that,
Probably not.
there was, like, a brief period where there was a shit ton of salties, and since then, they haven't shipped anything but the Steam team to stores. Like, Toys R Us was the one exception, and Toys R Us is dead now. There's a reason you can't get anything besides the Steam team and the 3-packs in stores, and it's because of the army of Tobys that were just at stores for the longest time. So he brought Percy and drove him back to the yard. "Edward," he called, "here's Percy. Will you show him everything?" Percy soon learned what he had to do, and they had a happy afternoon. Once Henry came by, hissing as usual. "Wheesh!" said Percy subtly. Henry jumped and ran back to the shed. "How beautifully you wheeshed him," laughed Edward. "I can't wheesh like that." "Oh," said Percy modestly, "that's nothing. You should see them in the workshop. You have to wheesh loudly to make yourself heard." I like this. It's cute. The shot in the TV series is
It's so
great.
good. I love how full of fun Percy is.
Yeah.
He's just, you know, he's so excited and so bubbly, and, like, you know, he...
I love that Edward is entirely here for it, too. He's just like, fuck yeah,
Yeah.
that was great.
I also really like how Percy looks in this illustration. Like,
Yeah.
he actually looks fairly proportionally sound.
Can I just say quickly, we have to talk about Johnny Morris's wheesh.
Yeah, it's the best thing ever.
Like, they put an echo effect on it, and that's kind of amazing.
It's so good. It's so good.
This is just a really fun page, because it's like,
Yeah.
I always took it as kind of Percy defending Edward from a bully.
Yeah. And he doesn't even really know he's doing it, but, like, he does, and it's great. And he also scares Henry so much in the TV series, he switches to his new model.
Yeah.
God, imagine
is
being
good.
so scared that you physically change form.
God.
That seems like a Dragon Ball thing.
I think there's, like, multiple Pokemon with that ability, I think.
Well, there's
Maybe.
Morpeko, which changes when it gets hungry.
Oh, you know what?
Angry.
Actually, I think I'm thinking of, God, what the fuck's it called? The one thing Guzma uses where it, like, you know, if it gets a certain threshold of damage, it just dips
What's
and
it
switches
called?
into something else.
It's like the
The water bug
yeah, it's like
thing.
the weird water bug thing. It's like, it's not Glycopod, is it? Is it Glycopod?
I think it is Glycopod, yeah. I love that clip from the anime where it shows off that ability, and it just switches out a Scizor into a fire blast.
This is the thing.
Scizor is just fucking annihilated.
This is the thing. I've been watching the Sun and Moon anime over the past week or so. There's just an episode where James fucking drop kicks a Tentacruel.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
Yeah. The newer seasons of the Pokemon anime have a lot of good
Yeah,
fun
it's like
moments.
I think Sun and Moon was the format change it needed.
Yeah.
Definitely. I've really enjoyed the episodes I've seen of Pokemon Journeys.
Is there anything else on this page?
Do we actually have anything else to say about this page?
I'm good on this page, honestly. I said everything I pretty much planned to.
Yeah, you know, I enjoy Edward and Percy's dynamic. You know,
Yeah.
you know, Edward is already being Percy's mentor, even though I feel like Edward being old and wise hasn't really been codified yet. It's kind of, you can kind of see the mentor kind of thing seeping out, like, both in, like, Thomas and the trucks and stuff, and other stuff. Well, I guess Edward helping other engines learn the ropes is kind of a thing, but, like,
it's cool to see.
It's still nice to see.
Thinking about it, like, just like the little bits here and like in the next story, it kind of reminds me of like what they ultimately do when the adventure begins with like Thomas and Edward's dynamic. Because
I love their dynamic in The Adventure Begins.
Oh no, same. Like it genuinely carries that special, and that special doesn't need to be carried. It's just like it's basically the through line, and it's really good, and I love it.
I love the ending. It's just like, oh, are you off to see the world now, Thomas?
Yeah.
I sure am.
Yeah. just smash cuts to Thomas. Like, fucking
smash cut,
China
smash
or
cut
whatever.
to Thomas coming out to Africa or whatever.
I'm still sad they didn't find Diesel in Big World.
Yeah, that would have been funny.
Like,
honestly, wouldn't it have been funny if, like, we didn't see Diesel after the Great Race?
Yeah, we don't see him after the Great Race, and then he comes back, and he's just kind of part of the traveling group in fucking Big World.
See, what I was thinking is, like, we just never see Diesel, period, after that. He's just gone forever.
I just imagine, like, Paxton at one point just, I miss Diesel.
I wonder what he's up to. It's just, like, fucking him, like, on the train in Brazil or whatever.
He's just, like, in the fucking, like the song, I don't remember what
he's
it's
in
called.
the fucking, like, he's in the festival parade in Brazil, and he's like, what am I doing here?
I don't know where I am.
It's just free and easy, but instead of, like, Thomas on the bottom of the stack, it's just fucking, like, Diesel.
Okay, but Diesel and Ace being traveling buddies actually sounds like it'd be kind of fun.
Oh, yeah, no, I'd love to see that.
I live free and easy. You were right to tell me, race car.
Diesel, you were right to tell me, Paxton.
I'll never get tired of that Diesel voice.
So good. Fucking.
Oh, God.
No, Paxton, I am the police.
You answer to me and me alone. This is way ahead of ourselves, especially because it doesn't even fucking apply to the Railway series, but I love Modern Diesel. Like, I completely get why he's contentious, but he's fucking fun. I love him.
My favorite Modern Diesel thing is honestly actually in Sunny Second Chance. And it's just I really don't understand you sometimes, Diesel. Nobody does.
Nobody does.
I like Tom. I like trains. Trains are neat.
God, it sucks.
Trains are
Sunny
good.
Second Chance.
Train good, car bad.
It sucks. Like, Sunny Second Chance became the meme that it did, because this is actually a fun episode. Partially just because of the stuff involving Diesel. I like the fucking, like, oh, like, Thomas is like to Sunny, it's like, who told you that? And he's like, that Diesel, named Diesel. And then they just don't acknowledge it afterwards. Thomas is good. Shall we continue?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Next morning, Thomas arrived. The Fat Controller sent me. I expect he wants help, he said importantly to Edward. Shh, shh, here he comes! Well done, Thomas, you've been quick. Listen, Henry, Gordon, and James are sulking. They say they want shunt like common tank engines, so I have shut them up, and I want you both to run the line. Common tank engines indeed, snorted Thomas. We'll show 'em. And Percy here will help too, said the Fat Controller. Oh, sir, yes, sir, please, sir, answered Percy excitedly.
It's Thomas the Friend, holy shit!
He looks weird in
This
this
is the first time
illustration.
we've seen him off his branch line since he got it.
Yeah.
And it's also the first time he meets Percy the Friend.
Hey.
Percy's so small in this illustration.
Yeah, he's tiny.
He really is.
This is my ideal Percy, honestly. He's very small.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I enjoy the smallness.
In my opinion, Percy should just be very tiny.
Pug the movie. I like Edward being bigger than them. Like, he looks just like a parent taking his 2 kids somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, but I like
You know.
Percy's the kind of kid who will like hold his dad's hand, but like Thomas is the kind of kid who'll like run ahead.
Yeah, and then immediately fall over and be like,
Yeah,
fuck you,
Thomas
Rock.
is the kind of kid who'll run face first into a tree.
Yeah. Also, Thomas's running board is looking very flat in this illustration. It's
You know,
weird.
he's squeezed back.
It's like kind of sloped, like barely.
There's a slight slope, but like it's also
It looks like it has
It's
the
weird.
dip, but the front buffer beam goes over the dip. Like, it's higher than it, so... It's weird.
It does a little bit, actually.
a little bit, yeah. So yeah, Fat Controller shut up the big engines in the shed because they didn't want to shunt like common tank engines. I think we kind of exhausted a bunch of like the talk we could have had about it on like the previous page, and I have a whole bunch of notes here about like, you know, why would the Fat Controller shut them up after giving them what they wanted? But like, you know, they were mean to Edward and, you know, Percy to a lesser extent, I guess. So like, you know, I guess that's enough justification.
Yeah, it's like they see.
I could also see it where
seemingly-
maybe they continued to be, like, maybe they tried, like, striking again because, like, you know, the Fat Controller got a tank engine for them, but it's the shitty little cheeky one who weeshed at Henry, so no. We don't want this one, get a different one.
God.
So the Fat Controller just decided, okay,
Yeah.
fuck you. You're staying in the
Fuck
shed.
this
I can definitely see it just being I can't fucking please you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
it's
'cause
like,
Henry's immediately a dick to Percy, too.
yeah, like
so-
Henry's still doing the hissing, so clearly it's like they're not gonna stop.
Yeah, this is not a like, you know, the big engines just want petty revenge. They, you know, they want petty revenge and they want their coach to be shunted, but somehow petty revenge is like over the shunting thing and their like tier list of priorities.
Yeah.
Which is like weird because now like they have what they want now. They have their own
Yeah.
tank engine.
It's the kind of thing where it's like, you get so into something, you lose the whole point of why you're doing it. Like, at this point, they're just being
Yeah.
dicks for the sake of being dicks, even though they've had, like,
Yeah, they're
multiple solutions.
they really are just an absolutely abysmal union.
Yeah.
Like,
You know, this isn't a union.
unions are not inherently bad.
This isn't a union. This is a bully club.
Yeah.
It's the Secret Tender Club.
Exactly.
No, it's the Secret Tender Club, and like the Secret Tender Club, they won't let Percy in.
They're gonna go eat a cheeseburger.
God. Edward and Thomas worked the line. Starting at opposite ends, they pulled trains, whistling cheerfully to each other as they passed. Percy sometimes puffed along the branch line. Thomas was anxious, but both driver and guard promised to take care of Annie and Clarabelle. There were fewer trains, but the passengers didn't mind. They knew the 3 other engines were having a lesson. Henry, Gordon, and James stayed shut in the shed, and were cold, lonely, and miserable. They wished now that they hadn't been so silly. The end.
L.
A couple things I do like how I do like the bit with like Thomas needing to be reassured that like Annie and Clarabelle will be okay.
Yeah.
Clarabelle.
He cares about. I also really like, you know, Thomas is finally getting to pull trains on the main line.
Yeah.
Because of this whole thing. But like, you know, this is something he's wanted to do since his first appearance. But he still goes back to his branch line without complaint.
Yeah.
Because he's matured. Like, this is something I never thought about until reading the story for these notes, but I really like that.
It's like he's getting what he originally wanted, but he doesn't care because he already has what he actually wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's more concerned about like what he's leaving behind than even like what he's like getting to do, and it's sweet.
Yeah.
Also,
This is a good
You know,
story.
also, the passengers' understanding about the whole train thing sounds fake, but
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because like,
Okay,
I feel
Audrey.
I feel like commuters would just be like, "What the fuck do you mean you're giving your engines a lesson?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I need to go to work. I
You
don't
must be some
care.
kind of cruel dictator, man.
I need to go to work. I don't care if the train stole the other train's crayon.
Who stole my crayons? Thomas's lighthouse.
God.
Sunshine, where the fuck are my crayons?
Fucking Zoran
God.
rap, but it's Gordon. A couple small things. I like in the TV series the shot of like Thomas and Percy both like happy and like looking at each other at the station. I think I have in my notes in all caps, let them like each other. Thomas doesn't hate Percy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I like that. I kind of mentioned this last story, but this is the first story where like everyone is involved and plays some role in the cast, minus Terrence and Bertie, but like even Aaron and Clarabelle get acknowledged, which is rare for them in the Railway series.
Terrence and Bertie are very much like their own thing.
Yeah.
I don't think, I guess you could have like a scene and, maybe they could have mentioned on one page, Bertie and Terrence helped out too or something. I don't know.
Bertie helps take passengers while Terrence shunts. This is a weird story. Like,
yeah. Do we want to move into ratings?
Yeah.
Or is this,
Yeah, actually, I think
yeah,
be good
it
to.
really is weird. Yeah, like, do you mind if I give my rating first and then let you
Of
do
course,
your
you're
thing?
always first. I mean,
At this point, the order is Jamie, marry me.
yeah, so
Yeah, but you were about to say something and I
no,
feel like I'm interrupting.
I was saying,
Ah.
like, can we, like, it'd be good to move into ratings because, and, like, I was implying that,
okay.
like, you go first.
Never mind then.
We're very professional.
So, let's move into ratings now. When I was, like, going through the story for notes, I feel like, I was expecting to be a lot more bothered by this story than I was. But, like, I feel like there are still, like, elements where you have to kind of question, like, what angle Audrey is trying to write at. And I'm not a fan of the way the Fat Controller plays his angle in the story. But, I was gonna give it a James originally, but, I mean, honestly, it's really not... just kind of looking at it through the lens we viewed it, and, like, just kind of thinking about these new ways we've been looking at it, I feel like it's probably fine. Like, I don't know, I can't words. But, I feel like I don't think I give it a James anymore. I think I'll give it a Percy, which is fitting because it gave us Percy.
Yeah.
And Percy is important and
We
lovely.
traded Percy's.
Yeah.
Percy is good.
Yeah.
I'm kind of similar in this. I didn't know what to expect going into this one, and like you said, I was kind of expecting like a lot more problems than I had, and there's certainly a lot here that's kind of like,
Yeah, like the Fat Controller's shutting the engines up in the shed. Like, if you're not thinking about the whole, like, them wishing at Edward thing, then yeah, it is kind of weird that they, Sir Topham Hatt gives them what they want and then punishes them anyway.
Yeah.
And
the fact that
it's a very Nancy Pelosi thing to do, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know
But
who
when you
that
consider,
is, but
oh
I
yeah,
agree.
they were being absolute assholes towards Edward, then it makes a little
Yeah.
bit more sense why they would, receive a punishment for their actions.
Yeah, and there's like the whole middle of like early on where he was like, like engines on my railway do as they are told, which is kind of
That's not a good
yeah,
justification.
Yeah.
For anyone. Like, no authority figure is, like, entitled to the respect of people.
Yeah, because
whether they came out of your vagina or not.
I just want to say this. Anybody who is watching this, if you end up being a parent some point down the line, don't ever say, because I said so. That's a way to make your kid resent you.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the fucking worst.
Yeah. And like, I worry like a lot of like why like I kind of ended up liking this story and like the reasons we explained and like talked about for like why things transpire the way they do is like I worry it's headcanon, but then it's like That's kind of the issue.
Like, why would you want to read it in the worst possible way is
Yeah.
also a valid interpretation. Like,
Yeah.
sure, Audrey might have been trying to, like, say some kind of bad message about unions, but we don't know that for
Yeah.
sure. And why should we be assuming the worst case scenario without, like, actually knowing what he had to say on the matter?
I think what I said, like, I kind of wrote in my notes for this, and I still stand by it, is that, like the potential yikes in this, and, like, the potential for just kind of the ambiguity of what the message is supposed to be, and that it could have been something I very much wouldn't agree with, makes me want to go... Like, my brain makes me kind of want to go James, but then my heart makes me want to go Donald, so I kind of just go in the middle and say Toby, because, like, I do really enjoy this, and I think if there was just, like, a solid interview or something where Audrey was asked about this and answered, and, like, it wasn't like, yeah, those union workers are commies sons of bitches who need to, like, get their act together and stop being silly. Like, if it wasn't that, I think things would be fine here.
Yeah, I think the closest we do have to an interview on the matter is, like, that one Christopher Audrey interview that I talked about in the Edward Gordon and Henry video, where Christopher Audrey kind of talks about that story and is like, the engines go on strike and the Fat Controller punishes them, but then he forgives them afterward, because forgiveness is important in the Railway series.
Aw, I forgot about that.
So,
yeah,
yeah.
Toby is solid here for me. The good far outweighs the bad, and the more I've read and, like, not studied this, but, like, kind of examined it for this, like, the more I very much think that the worst very much wasn't supposed to be the case here. So I enjoy this one, and it also gave us tied for my favorite character in the franchise, so I really can't hate it for that.
And both of your
So yeah,
favorites are
Toby.
number 6.
Exactly.
So, I guess for me, I didn't really have a rating idea coming into this, but I'm gonna say, like, Toby too. Because it's like, it's not amazing, but it's also a really fun story that gives us a fan-favorite character, and includes basically the entirety of the main cast. Like, there's like Birdie and Terrence who aren't involved, but they're kind of like ancillary, and they're only really tied to Thomas at this point. So, like, they don't really need to be here, but, like, this is very much, like, basically the entire railway is involved on this. And that's cool, because there aren't many stories like that in the books.
Yeah, I can't even really think of another.
There's the 8 famous engines. And there's Paint Pots and Queens.
Like, it's mostly, like, a lot of big event stories.
Yeah, whereas this is just kind of like...
And I guess this kind of counts as a big event, since it's, like, it's big in terms of, like, it's a big event in terms of the scope of the series right now. But, like, usually after this, it's, like, a special occasion when all the engines get together for something.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm gonna say Toby. It's not my favorite story, but it's really good, and, like, obviously, like, I feel like sometimes I can kind of be a little bit of a Railway Series apologist, which I don't really want to be, but I never had an issue with this, and I feel like if you read it, like, and you really try and dissect it, there's nothing really to imply that Audrey had kind of any negative ideas with it when he was writing it.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna say Toby.
Yeah.
Not amazing, but it's good, and I think that the series is better for it having been here.
Same, honestly. It is kind of interesting to think about that, like, the story is, like, not even just a reflection of the time, like, in terms of, like, real life and all of that, like, ignoring that, like, it kind of is a reflection of where the series is at this point, because after, I want to say, like, Donald and Douglas, like, we never really get a story where everyone shows up in some way, because like it's a good thing the series grows out the way it is, but, like, I don't know, I think that's part of why there's a lot of, for lack of a better word, charm in the earlier first half of the Railway series, where things Like, the railway's
the
a lot
circle's
smaller.
a lot smaller and intimate than it. The circle of characters is a lot like smaller and more intimate in these days.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why people love the Scholarly Railway so much, because it never really lost that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, even as late as, like, it's like New Little Engine, which, like, you know, not good, but they're all in it.
Yeah, they're all supposed to be there, too, at the meeting, even if the illustration doesn't show it.
Yeah, like, nobody's, like, forced to stay on some obscure branch. Nobody's, like, stuck up at the quarry. They all just live in the sheds, and they all talk to each other about their, their day and their feelings.
Yeah.
And they're a big family.
Yeah, and there's a lot to like
my
about
engines
that.
are a family, and in a family you don't have favorites.
Hey. Yeah, and...
Unless you're Christopher Audrey, in which case it's Toby.
Which, we make fun of Christopher Audrey, but fair enough, mate.
Yeah, honestly,
fair enough.
Especially because
good taste.
This is getting way ahead, but the reasoning for why Toby's his favorite is really sweet too. So, like, because it's like he met like the actual tram and like their vacation is what inspired it and everything, and it's like that's cute. I like that. This series is good.
So much of the books is kind of just Audrey taking things from his life and also from his train set.
Yeah. There's a lot of heart to this series, and that's definitely why it's had the impact on all of us it has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Thomas never felt corporate, and I think that's one of its biggest strengths. It always felt genuine, and I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least until things started to go downhill, but that's a story
James,
for
Percy,
another day.
Mia, Gordon, Rebecca, Emily, Thomas #1.
All engines go.
Next
to
time
the
we're going to be talking about
polls.
Percy Runs Away. I want to run away from that song.
Percy Runs Away. Great story. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It'll be the end of Troublesome Engines. We've been breezing through this, and I'm pretty sure it only feels that way just because we're recording these weekly now.
Yeah. Also, like, peek behind the curtain, our episode recordings until this one actually have been pretty consistently like shorter than what we've normally had, but this one's like pushing it at like almost 2 hours. So, yeah, I've enjoyed this so far.
Yeah.
It's been a fun discussion this week. So I hope y'all come back next week to finish up Troublesome Engines with the final story in the book.
Yeah.
Which I this might be something I should save to like talk about in that story, but it's kind of interesting because that book is kind of like, in all the previous books, it's always been the last story that's been like the big ending thing, whereas like this is the third story and this is the big thing, and then the next story is falling action.
The next story is
that's
kind of
interesting.
just like, I guess it's like a thing. Percy here is the resolution to the conflict. In the next story, Percy is the conflict.
Yeah, the next story is
Yeah.
literally Percy's day off, where like he kinda gets himself into shit, but also ends up solving the shit in the process. So
It's we'll just have to save our thoughts on it until next time.
Make
So
sure
I
you
hope,
join us.
Hope you all enjoyed this episode. Yeah, join us on the Discord too. Click the link in the description to the Discord, like, subscribe, all that
Follow
jazz.
us on Twitter.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter. And see y'all later. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
everyone.